Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and thanks for joining us for another episode of FPL Fix. What a game week we've just come through, and we have a really short turnaround now before game week 27. My name's James, and here to break it down with me, as usual, is Patrick.
Hi everyone, we have a lot to talk about this week. The Palmer/Salah captaincy debate, benching headaches to discuss, and who to transfer in ahead of the deadline.
Before we begin, we have to get the warning signs up yet again with another early deadline. Deadline day is today at 6:30 PM, so make sure you've got your moves made ahead of the deadline and don't get caught out.
Okay, let's get started. James, you wildcarded. How did you get on?
Well Patrick, I've just had back-to-back green outers for the first time since game weeks 7, 8 and 9, and I've hit 300 points from the last 3 game weeks. So apart from a couple of incorrect benching decisions, I was pretty happy with how the game week turned out. On Saturday evening, with only Salah left to play, I'd moved up to the top 500k, having already scored 62 points. If Isak hadn't smashed in another brace on Sunday, I think I'd still be there as well, but I'm sitting at just over 700k and quietly confident with my rank and strategy. The game week started on Friday, and so I started off the week with both Mbeumo and Wissa returning and giving me 22 points. As a Wissa owner, I consider that pretty unlucky too, as there was definitely enough evidence to suggest that he could have been given an assist to go along with the goal he scored. On Saturday, the early red card for Bournemouth was really unwelcome given that I decided to triple up on them, Kirkez, Dango and Kluivert returning a weak 5 points between them. Minter rewarded my 1 week punt with 6 points and was quite unlucky not to take more in the 4-0 victory over Southampton. Cunha kept up his status as a bonus point monster by taking the maximum, albeit at the expense of my Bournemouth assets. In my defence, I have to admit that I was one of the over 1 million managers who left Lewis Hall on the bench for his double assist and 9-pointer. I also left Aït-Nouri on the bench for his clean sheet, and instead I started Robinson and Kirkez for their 1-point displays. The Crystal Palace double defence in Henderson and Munoz was a stroke of genius though. They delivered a clean sheet on top of the brilliantly taken goal from Munoz and got me 19 points between them. Despite not having my assistant managership active yet, we have to give a shout out to the managers who used Glasner in that game for a massive 20-point return, and give a moment of silence to the Arteta owners who'll feel really hard done by that they got no points at all from him against West Ham. So Patrick, you had Slot in for his last appearance for you. Did he make the difference again this week?
Well, some of us are still FPL newbies and will not be arrogantly talking about our rank. But all jokes aside, well done. I genuinely thought getting rid of Isak and Wood would come back to haunt you, but somehow you survived. I don't know how, but you did. I got 87 points, which was above the average again, but I'm not overly happy with the score because I had an additional 19 points sitting on the bench. Mohamed Salah got 28 points and was the undisputed star again with a goal and an assist, while Isak got 13 points and Cunha got 9 points, providing much needed attacking returns. Isak got a brace, and if you watched last week's video, you'll remember me contemplating giving him the armband. I finally swapped out Onana for Flecken and was immediately rewarded with a 7 points return. Van Hecke, who I brought off the bench for Digny, got 7 points. However, I had Wan-Bissaka on the bench and he outscored my whole starting defense. Got 12 points in total. Apart from Salah, my midfield had another subpar performance, which is becoming the norm. I didn't follow my own advice and I kept Palmer, and again he didn't get more than 2 points. Overall, Salah's dominance and Isak's efficiency ensured a strong week, topped off with another decent return from Arne Slot, who got me 10 points.
So, now we've seen how our teams performed last week, let's look at who were the real standout players.
Looking at the top performers from game week 26, we can feel pretty smug, as between us we own 8 of the 13 players on show, even though we benched 2 of them. Jose Sarr tops the goalkeeping list as Wolves managed a surprise clean sheet against Bournemouth. He was pivotal with 3 saves and returned 9 points. Alisson was second, but largely he was the most impressive player on this list. He made 5 saves against Man City, kept a clean sheet and came away with 8 points. Flecken managed back-to-back clean sheets for the first time this season and got 7 points to show for it. And I finally brought him off the bench, so I was super gassed. Top of the defenders list was Munoz, with an amazing 13 points display, combining a goal, clean sheet and maximum bonus points. Well done, James, for that. Wan-Bissaka second, he assisted Jared Bowen and played a key part in keeping Arsenal out. I stupidly decided to leave him on the bench. Don't know why, but I did. Hull, who you benched, got 9 points despite Newcastle conceding 3 goals as he produced 2 assists and 2 bonus points. Lacroix assisted a Fulham own goal and played a key part in Crystal Palace keeping a clean sheet.
Okay, moving on to midfielders, and shockingly, Salah is not top of the list for the first time in a while, even though he did come close. Asensio instead was number 1 with 15 points. He managed 2 goals and showed his class on his first full 90 minutes he's played for Villa and thoroughly rewarded Emery. Salah, Mbeumo and Johnson all returned 14 points this week and share the rest of the places on this chart. Salah and Mbeumo both returned 1 goal, 1 assist and max bonus points. Johnson scored twice and did get max bonus but was docked points for his yellow card. And finally the strikers. Isak managed 2 goals and max bonus despite being fairly lucky with that bizarrely taken penalty that somehow Sells didn't keep out. João Pedro was second, and he wasn't expected to start, but a late injury to Welbeck, who unbelievably tripped over his pet turtle, meant that he started and he ended up with 12 points through a goal, an assist and max bonus. Cunha was third and, as he so often does, picked up maximum bonus points with only 1 goal and he returned 9 points. So now we've learned everything we need from last week, let's look ahead to game week 27 and see who the most transferred players are so far.
Starting with the most transferred out, Rodgers, Gakpo and Gordon all blank in game week 29, so that might be the main reason why the people are looking to move on. Ahmad is out through injury, so let's talk about Cole Palmer. Over 90,000 managers have already sold him, which is interesting because he's got the perfect fixtures coming up. I fully understand the decision because he's been a frustrating asset to own. He's had no assist in his last 13 Premier League games, but if he can't do it against relegation strugglers, then what's the point in owning him, especially given how expensive he is. We also need to mention that he dropped in price last week.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange one. Like you said, he's been sold by nearly 100,000 managers so far, but I don't own him this week and to be honest, I'm petrified of him hitting another 20 plus pointer. I'm torn between bringing him in for a hit or leaving as is, but given that I'm keeping the armband on Salah, I'm not 100% convinced it's worth the -4. Moving on to the most transferred in players, and 4 out of the top 5 are already in my team, which makes a nice change. Cunha is the number 1 forward transfer and he's scored in his last 4 matches in all competitions, and the upcoming fixtures look great as we already discussed. And Mbeumo, Bowen and Asensio are the top midfield transfers in. Bowen looks the best to me, playing as the front man for West Ham and he should be on pens with Paqueta out. And Mbeumo and Asensio are both coming off the back of big returns, but their fixtures do peter out in my opinion, and I would personally look elsewhere, like a Bowen or a Neto if picking up a mid at this point. Munoz is the most brought in defender off the back of his second double figure haul in his last 3 games, but he does blank in game week 29, so should only really be an option if you're free hitting in 29 or can manage your squad without him. Okay, so there's no clear trends in the transfer category, except for the trend of players James brought in last week. Now let's have a look at all the teams with the best upcoming fixtures to target.
Oh my god, you couldn't help yourself. Okay, as you can see on screen, we have Chelsea, West Ham and Wolves, who all have a game in blank game week 29, and they all got really promising chances of doing well over the next few weeks and long term. For goalkeepers, the only one worth a mention on here is Jose Sarr. The Chelsea and West Ham keepers to a degree are all rotation risks, so probably best to avoid. In defence, I think Wan-Bissaka, Aït-Nouri are the best pickups, especially because they're both under 5 mil.
Midfield is interesting. Palmer is predicted to be the top point scorer this week, but I actually went early and went for Bowen. I think I prefer Bowen for the next game and for the next run of fixtures, but Palmer will be a strong option and a definite captain candidate. Have you decided on captaincy yet, Patrick?
I've been told I'm not allowed to swear, so I have to be politically correct. So not only have I not sold Palmer despite threatening to do so, I now have to contemplate captaining him. There is a big split in the FPL community, with many managers willing to take a risk on captaining him this week, but I just can't give the armband to someone who's let me down so many times lately.
Okay, so moving on from Cole Palmer and onto the strikers to target, and Chelsea don't have one available at the moment who's capable of starting while Jackson's currently injured. Evan Ferguson isn't an option yet either, with him just being introduced into the West Ham team. Cunha looks great. He's the pick of the bunch with 4 consecutive returns, the best fixture in 29, and he's likely to be the top forward transfer this week. So now we know who to target, let's look at how this affects our lineups this week. Patrick, talk us through your team.
Slightly controversial, but I've decided to bring back Onana in goal, despite Flecken's impressive performance last week. I just believe Ipswich is a weaker side and Man United have a higher chance of a clean sheet. I've only made one change in defence. I've brought in Wan-Bissaka for Van Hecke. After leaving him on the bench last week, I think it's only fair to bring him back in. He also offers some attacking threat. In midfield, I've decided to be experimental and bring in differential players. Enzo comes off the bench for Dango, and I've brought in Jared Bowen for Rodgers, who blanks in game week 29. Both Enzo and Bowen scored last week, and are most likely to go up in price before deadline. Another benefit is that both players are available in game week 29. Salah will be my captain against a shaky Newcastle defence, which conceded 3 goals last week. I personally believe he's having a Ballon d'Or season, to be honest, and somehow he is still strangely underrated. He has created more chances in open play than any other player across Europe's Big 5 leagues this season. I've kept Palmer only because the FPL community have bullied me into keeping him. No change up front. Isak faces Liverpool in a tough fixture, but he's worth the risk. Woods against Arsenal, he's my only concern, but he's proven to be an outstanding performer regardless of the position. Last is Cunha, who has a decent fixture against Fulham. He's in great form and has scored in his last 4 Premier League games. Overall, I'm bullish about my chances this week, and I think my team is well balanced. So, James, you broke the 100 points barrier last week. What does your team look like for game week 27?
Okay, so in the defensive positions, I'm starting with the Crystal Palace double up that did so well for me last week, Henderson and Munoz. I'm going to bench Kirkes due to Zabani being suspended, and I'm taking the risk and going to bench Hall yet again. Aït-Nouri and Robinson are playing each other, but both have good offensive threat, so I'm hopeful that between them there'll be a return or 2. Salah will be my captain again, even though I am tempted by Bowen, who I'm also starting and just bought in with my free transfer. Salah has scored more points in just his away games this season than any other player has managed in all their matches home and away, which is ridiculous. I haven't got the other main captain option yet, who's Palmer, but I might take a -4 and bring him in for Mbeumo. I'm really undecided on that move, to be honest, and will leave that decision until late, just before the deadline. Kluivert will also be starting for me, and given that Webster and Dunk are out through injury, I'm hoping that Kluivert can be involved in the action. My front 3 are Marmoush, Cunha and Wissa. If Haaland is out again, which is quite likely, then Marmoush will be leading the line for City, and against Spurs he should get a few chances. Cunha we've already spoken about, and he seems to be a great pick. Everton have been good, but did concede twice to Manchester United, so I'm hoping Wissa can step up for me again and bag a return. And that's all for this week's FPL update. Let us know in the comments who you're captaining or any big transfers you're making. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more FPL content, and follow us on Twitter @WeekendFix for more updates and last minute tips.
Thanks for watching, and good luck with game week 27.